Here we go. So welcome again, everybody, to our Eat Strike online rally on workplace temperature and climate justice. I'm Clara Paylard from Tipping Point UK and Unite the Union. I'm going to facilitate this rally tonight. My co-hosts are Nuala and Liam, if you want to wave, from the Heat Strike. I'm very grateful to them and their team for all the work they've been doing around this campaign. It's been really amazing. We all know that the climate crisis is happening right now, and it is affecting workers and their communities. One of the effects is the more frequent heat waves hitting the UK now almost every year, and they're affecting us at work as well as at home. Whether it's posties or warehouse workers, catering staff or delivery drivers, school teachers or health workers, indoor or outdoor workers, most workplaces are going to need to adapt in the face of climate change. Heat waves are a recurring event in many countries across the world, nothing new like us in the UK. And this is why I'm so pleased tonight to welcome Sebastiano Calieri from the Italian union CGIL and Manju Joel from the Amazon India Workers Association. Really pleased that you've been able to join us and to give us a bit of an international perspective. Special thanks to Manju and her translator for joining, given I think it's not far from midnight in India. So really appreciate you being here. I will introduce them further in a moment and the other speakers, but it's important to have international speakers with us and to recognize that the climate crisis is disproportionately affecting people in the global south. Heat Strike is a campaign that aims to bring together communities and workers to spotlight the impact of the heat waves. And it's got 3 campaign objectives. Set a national maximum working temperature in law that we haven't got in the UK. Put in place a heat wave furlough scheme when it's too hot to work, and make a climate action plan, because we know that those 2 issues are linked. Heat Strike is not an official trade union strike, but more of an action on the model of the climate strikes. We can use it to build relationship between trade unions and the climate justice movement, as well as promote measures that employers and unions can put in place in the workplace to protect their workers during the heat waves. The rally is going to last to about 90 minutes. We have 2 speakers. We will have translation. So it's going to be great to hear other languages than English for a change. But we haven't got simultaneous translation. So bear with us until the translation happens. Thanks so much to the translators too. The rally is not a debate, so there won't be questions to speakers after each intervention. And first of all, we're going to hear from Shelley Asquith, who is the Health and Safety and Wellbeing Officer at the TUC, the Trade Union Congress in the UK. She'll be followed by Manju Joel from the Amazon India Workers Association, AWA. AWA is organizing Amazon warehouse workers to improve labor rights, occupational health and safety, and to win a union. And it's supported by Uni Global Union. Our contribution will be translated by Dharmendra Kumar, the convener of AWA. And in a minute, I'll post a recent article about their struggle in the chat. We'll also hear from Sebastiano Calieri, the National Coordinator of Health and Safety for the Workplace in the Italian trade union CGIL. His contribution will be translated by Lorenzo Feltrin, who is a member of the ex-JKN International Solidarity Network. And I'm taking this opportunity to send full solidarity to our comrades in Italy at the Firenze JKN automotive factory, who have been fighting for 3 years to save their jobs and to transition their automotive plant to a more sustainable production. 4 of the workers have been on hunger strike since the 4th of June. And I'll post the link to more information in the chat, how you can support them in a moment. After our 3 first speakers, Nuala will take us through more details of what the heat strike campaign is about, its demands, and what's the plan. We will then continue with the rest of our amazing speakers from across the UK trade union movement. We've got Ricardo Latorre, National Officer at the Fire Brigades Union, FBU, Robbie Woodland from the Bakers, Foods and Allied Workers Unions, is the Cornwall President for this union. We'll hear from my good friend Claire Trevor, or Trav, with the branch secretary at Unite the Union Hospitality East Midlands, and also sit on the Youth Bureau. She's the president of the Youth Bureau at the European Federation for Food, Agriculture and Tourism Trade Unions. We'll have Jamie McGovern from the Communication Workers Union, CWU, is an area safety representative in Royal Mail and coordinator of the Merseyside International Workers Memorial Committee. And last but not least, we'll hear from Paul O'Leran from the GMB Union. He's a regional education and health and safety officer for the Northwest and Ireland, and he represents the Hazard campaign, which is a brilliant campaign around health and safety, working with many unions. That's quite a long introduction, but we've got some really brilliant speakers. Finally, Liam from Heat Strike will take us through more of the practicality of what action you could be taking this summer during the heat strike, what resources we have for you, like the action pack, the health and safety posters. And don't forget also to check our model motion to take to your union branch and get the support for the heat strike. Help us to build that action. If we have time at the end, we can take a few questions, but you will receive further info via email post-rally. That was quite a long introduction, but I think this is all from me, and I'm now going to let our first speaker take the floor. Shelley, the floor is yours.
Oh, thanks very much for that. And I want to start by thanking you, Clara and Nuala and Liam and Ian and everyone else who's involved in the Heat Strike campaign for launching this initiative. I think it's really fantastic to see a campaign that actively brings together trade unionists and climate activists. We're sometimes counterposed as having competing interests, even differing class interests, when in fact, whether it's a warming planet or it's air pollution, the risks of floods or the byproducts of war, it is the working class who pay the price, whether with our lives or with our livelihoods. So it's an urgent, it's a really creative, I think, campaign, and I'm really pleased to be able to work with it. I'm going to start by saying the name Dr. Michael Mosley, who you've no doubt read about in recent days, the TV doctor who was reported missing on a very small Greek island just this week, whose body has now been recovered after he'd gone for a walk in very, very high temperatures. And it's increasingly now the suggestion that he died of dehydration, walking in the heat, perhaps got lost, fainted. And nobody should be surprised if that is indeed the cause of death, because last year, the Communication Workers Union shared the names of 3 postal workers who had died during or shortly after their delivery rounds during previous heat waves. And I'm sure perhaps Jamie will say a bit more about that and the work that that union's been doing. But also because in 2020, 2,500 people died due to hot weather across the country. And in 2022, more than 1,000 people in Britain died in 1 week alone as temperatures soared to 40 degrees Celsius. Scientists are now predicting that those kinds of temperatures in summer in this country will soon become the norm, and heat waves are already lasting twice as long as they did 50 years ago. And it's not just a case of, getting into a sweaty mess. The risks of heat exhaustion and dehydration are really serious. Not only can you collapse, but overheating can seriously impair your cognitive functions as well. Our concentration starts to drop by 5% when temperatures exceed 28 degrees Celsius. So you'll do a worse job. And if you're in a safety critical role, you could be putting a lot of other people's lives at risk as well. So that's why the TUC is calling for a maximum working temperature. The law currently doesn't stipulate a minimum or a maximum, but we do at least have regulations which give us guidance for indoor workplaces being at least 16 degrees Celsius. The TUC's position is that 24 degrees, that is when employers should begin to take action to reduce the temperature. And at 30, that should be an absolute maximum. 27 if you're doing strenuous work, but that is when the job should absolutely stop. Now, there are exceptions, of course, in the fire service, in a furnace, in jobs where workers are provided with specialist clothing and equipment because they're meant to be working in heat, and in jobs where there's regular health screening that takes place because of those working conditions. But otherwise, it's unreasonable, it's unacceptable, and it can't be tolerated. So we need a maximum working temperature. We need to catch up with other countries who do have these protections already. In the United States, a new law says that workplaces shouldn't go beyond 24 degrees Celsius. And last year, a regulator in the US announced a series of measures to tackle workplace heat exposure, with enforcement officers making unannounced inspections for the first time over the summer. Meanwhile, in Britain, you are more likely to have a meteorite land in your garden than receive an inspection from a health and safety inspector. As well as hazardous heat, there's also the risks of increasingly intense sun exposure. And the two usually go hand in hand. Of course, that can cause sunburn, skin damage, and skin cancer. And actually, workers who regularly work outdoors are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with skin cancer, which is why we say SPF is PPE. It's personal, it's protective, it's equipment, and it should be being provided by employers free of charge to workers. But in so many cases, it isn't. But there's action that we can take that goes beyond, asking governments, asking employers to change their laws, change their policies. There are really practical things that union reps can do. For a start, union health and safety reps have got the right to carry out inspections. They can use thermometers. That's one really easy way to monitor working temperatures on a regular basis. Report that evidence to management if it's not safe. You can get members together, talk about the issues that you're experiencing, whether it's heat, whether it's sun, whether it's anything to do with your health and safety. Launch a survey, demonstrate the scale of the problem. And you can deliver your demands. What needs changing and what action are we going to take if we don't get it? That's what members of the CWU did. And again, Jamie might be able to say more about this, but in 2022, they secured an agreement with Royal Mail that no van without aircon will be driven in temperatures above 30 degrees, and no postie will walk their rounds in that heat either. It's what the former NEU General Secretary, Kevin Courtney, did. And he was a young teacher. He forced a change to school policy by daring to wear shorts to work in hot weather. He was disciplined by his school management for doing so, but the rest of his colleagues the very next day returned to school all wearing shorts, and they soon changed their policy. It's what Unite construction workers did. On one site, a big site building houses, they took evidence to management about the links between outdoor work, sun exposure, and cancer rates. And thanks to them, sunscreen dispensers are provided in all site welfare facilities now, and a yearly skin cancer campaign is run to raise awareness. And it's what London Underground workers did when they were refused access to drinking water during a heatwave. Their RMT safety reps cited Section 44 of the Employment Rights Act 1996. That enabled them to remove themselves from the workplace and shut down the station. And funnily enough, management then decided to give them their water. Just a note on Section 44, because a lot of people don't know about this section of the law, don't understand its importance and how it can be applied. Now, it protects workers from any form of detriment, whether that's being dismissed, disciplined, or having your pay docked, for leaving the workplace altogether in fear of serious or imminent danger to your health and safety, to the health and safety of others around you. The TUC's got guidance on what it is, when and how to use it, why you need to, make it a union action, ideally, to protect yourself. But please, let's spread the word. It's the union health and safety agenda, far beyond any other agenda, that has the power to shut workplaces down and protect people. So Strike while the work is hot. If you're not in a union, join one, because whatever the weather, but especially in the burning sun, you'll call it in a union.
Thanks so much, Shelley, for this brilliant, perfect introduction to the topic. And we are really looking forward to do some more work with you and link up with the TUC and the huge network of health and safety reps. Really looking forward to that. Thank you. I'm gonna move on to the next speaker now. And I'm really pleased to welcome Manju Goel from the Amazon Indian Workers Association, who's taken the time to join us tonight. And her contribution is not in English, but will be followed by a translation by Dharmendra Kumar. So Manju, if I can find you and put you on the spotlight, the floor is yours.
हेलो
Hello, we can hear you.
हेलो सभी को नमस्ते। मेरा नाम मंजू गोयल है। मैंने इंडिया के दिल्ली के पास मानेसर के अमेज़न वेयर हाउस में जुलाई 2022 में एसोसिएट के रूप में ज्वाइन किया था। मैं कुछ घंटों के बाद ट्रेनिंग देने के बाद मुझे टारगेट देकर काम में झोंक दिया गया। टारगेट की मॉनिटरिंग हर घंटे होती है। टारगेट पूरा करने का दबाव इतना ज्यादा होता है कि यदि मुझे वॉशरूम या कहीं पीने के पानी के लिए भी जाना होता है तो भी मुझे कई बार सोचना पड़ता है, क्योंकि अगर मैं पीने के पानी के लिए चली गई या वॉशरूम के लिए चली गई तो मुझे ये लगेगा कि मेरा टारगेट कैसे पूरा होगा, मैं अपना टारगेट पूरा नहीं हो पाएगा। सर ट्रांसलेट कर दीजिए।
I will translate for Manju Goyal. So, hello everyone, my name is Manju Goyal. In July 2022, I joined the Amazon warehouse in Manesar near Delhi as an associate. Just after a few hours of training, I was given a target and thrown into the task. Targets are monitored on hourly basis. The pressure to meet the target is so much that even if we have to go for the washroom break or water break, we have to think twice, because if I go to drink water or washroom, I will not be able to meet the target.
मुझे हमेशा लगातार खड़े रह के काम करना होता है। खड़े खड़े जब मैं थक जाती हूँ, मतलब हम सब लोगों को वेयर हाउस में जितने भी वर्कर हैं, 5 मिनट अगर आराम करने का मन भी हो तो भी वेयर हाउस में कहीं भी ऐसी कोई व्यवस्था नहीं है जिससे कि हम वर्कर कहीं पर भी 2 मिनट बैठ के आराम कर लें। इतने बड़े वेयर हाउस में कहीं पर भी कहीं एयर कंडीशनर भी नहीं है, कहीं तो एयर कंडीशनर भी नहीं है, और कहीं अगर एयर कंडीशनर है भी तो वो बहुत दूर है। पंखे के नीचे अगर में बैठते हैं हम लोग तो थोड़ी राहत लगती है कि हाँ कुछ है, और पंखे से दूर थोड़ा सा चले गए तो बहुत गर्मी लगती है। खड़े खड़े गर्मी में प्यास भी लगती है और चक्कर भी आने लगते हैं। कुछ लड़कियां या लड़के तो बेहोश भी हो जाते हैं इसी की वजह से कि गर्मी बहुत ज्यादा है और पीने का पानी जाने के लिए नहीं होता है।
So we have to work in a standing position. If we get tired, we cannot take rest even for a minute. There is no sitting arrangement for workers like us to sit and rest our bodies even for a few minutes. If there is an air conditioner or cooler, it is far away from working area. If we are working somewhere close to the fan, only then there is some relief from heat. Staying even a little away from the fan makes us feel sweating. Working while standing in the heat makes you feel dizzy. Some girls and boys even faint, and I have seen girls fainting very often.
इस साल मई के महीने में रिकॉर्ड तोड़ गर्मी रही है। भारत में 1901 में तापमान की रिकॉर्डिंग होती है। पहली बार दिल्ली में दर्ज अधिकतम तापमान का पिछला रिकॉर्ड भी टूट गया, और मई के महीने में तापमान 50 डिग्री सेल्सियस 122 डिग्री फ़ारेनहाइट से भी ऊपर चला गया। ऐसी भीषण गर्मी में भी अमेज़न के वेयर हाउस में वर्करों के लिए तापमान कम करने की कोई भी उचित व्यवस्था नहीं है। अमेज़न का जो डाक एरिया है, स्टोर एरिया है, कैंटीन एरिया है, सभी जगह का तापमान 32 डिग्री 90 डिग्री फ़ारेनहाइट से भी ज्यादा है। लोडिंग अनलोडिंग वर्कर लोडी के अंदर बाहर के तापमान से भी ज्यादा तापमान में काम करते हैं। अधिकारी जो भी होते हैं वो कूलर के सामने बैठते हैं और कूलर का मुंह अपनी तरफ कर लेते हैं। वर्कर लोडिंग अनलोडिंग करने से गर्मी में बेहाल हो जाते हैं। वर्कर अनलोडिंग करने में गर्मी से भी बेहाल हो जाते हैं।
This year there was record-breaking heat in the month of May. Temperatures have been recorded in India since 1901. For the first time, the previously recorded maximum temperature in Delhi was also broken, and in the month of May, the temperature went above 50 degrees Celsius. That is approx 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Even in such scorching heat, there is no proper arrangement to reduce the temperature for the workers in Amazon's warehouse. The temperature everywhere in Amazon, whether it is dock area, store department, or even in the canteen, it's more than 32 degrees Celsius or 90 degrees Fahrenheit. In loading and unloading section, a worker who works inside a lorry faces temperature in the outside temperature. The officers, managers working in the warehouse sit near the air cooler, and turn the face of the cooler towards them. Workers suffer from heat while loading and unloading.
ऐसे ऐतिहासिक हीट वेव में भी बजाय वेयर हाउस के वर्कर टारगेट कम करने के वर्कर्स के लिए कुछ सुविधा बढ़ाने की बजाय अमेज़न मैनेजमेंट हमसे ये शपथ दिलवाता है कि हम अपना टारगेट पूरा करेंगे, शौचालय और पीने का पानी पीने के लिए नहीं जाएंगे। हमारी यूनियन अमेज़न इंडिया वर्कर्स एसोसिएशन, जो कि यूनी ग्लोबल यूनियन से एफिलेटेड है, उन्होंने सरकार को लिख कर दिया है कि लू को देखते हुए अमेज़न वेयर हाउस वर्कर्स को पर्याप्त राहत की व्यवस्था की जाए।
So even in such a historic heat wave, instead of reducing the target and increasing some facilities for the workers, Amazon management makes us take an oath that we will meet the target, and for this we will not go for toilet break or water break. Our union, Amazon India Workers Association, which is supported by Uni Global Union, has written to the government many a times to ensure adequate relief to Amazon warehouse workers in view of the heat wave.
मीडिया के माध्यम से हम वर्करों ने भी अपनी आवाज उठाई और बहुत सारे मुख्य जो मीडिया हैं उन्होंने हमारी बात को छापा भी, दिखाया भी और सुनाया भी। अमेज़न मैनेजमेंट में बस इतना ही फर्क पड़ा कि उन्होंने रिहाइड्रेशन के लिए अब ORS पास में रखने लगे हैं। हमारी यूनियन आईवा और यूनी ग्लोबल यूनियन तब तक संघर्ष करती रहेगी जब तक कि वर्करों को पूरा न्याय न मिल जाए और उनके काम को, उनके स्वास्थ्य को एक्सट्रीम मौसम से बचाया जाए। लड़ेंगे, जीतेंगे।
We as workers also raised our voice through the media. Many mainstream media has published our views and concerns and heard us. The only difference that has happened at the Amazon management is that they have now started keeping ORS for rehydration. Our union, Amazon India Workers Association and Uni Global Union, will struggle until the workers get complete justice and their work and health are protected from extreme weather. We shall fight, we shall win. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manju Goel. Thank you so much, Dharmendra Kumar. It's, so important to hear from your struggle in India. We're really grateful that you've been able to share these testimonies with us tonight. And I think that, a bit of a reflection for all of us here in the UK on as we struggle, as we campaign for regulation in this country, we need to make sure that we amplify your voices and your struggle in India. and act in solidarity. So we're looking forward to keep the dialogue going and to see how we can, amplify your campaign. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. And also, if you don't want to stay for the entire rally, you also, welcome to not stay, given the time in India. So really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, well, we are actually gonna come back closer to home now with Italy. I mean, obviously, very different weather that we've got in the UK, and the workers in the CGIL trade union have been campaigning for a heat furlough in their country, following the increasing heat waves. So I'm really pleased that we've got tonight another language again, in Italian. We have got Sebastiano Calieri, who is the National Coordinator for Health and Safety in the Italian trade union CGIL. And thank you to Lorenzo Feltrin, who is going to be the translator for Sebastiano tonight. So again, bear with us. And I need to find you to spotlight you. Sebastiano? You are on mute, Sebastiano.
Do you hear me?
Sì.
Yeah. Buonasera a tutte e a tutti.
Good night,
dall'Italia, dove stasera a casa mia ci sono 27 gradi e dove i negazionisti climatici sono purtroppo arrivati al governo.
Saying hi from Italy. Tonight there's 26 degrees Celsius at my place, and we have a climate denialist government.
Vorrei dedicare questo mio intervento a una lavoratrice morta in Italia nel 2015 di caldo lavorando sui campi, la signora Paola Clemente.
I would like to dedicate this intervention to Paola Clemente, a worker who died from heat in 2015 working on the fields.
Perché da allora purtroppo il dibattito si è molto animato nel nostro paese, ma non siamo ancora riusciti a ottenere un singolo risultato su questo dossier.
Since then, there's been a heated debate on this issue in our country, but we haven't managed to move forward on this issue.
Il governo ci ha convocato lo scorso anno e siamo riusciti a ottenere solamente un finanziamento per la cassa integrazione dei lavoratori e delle lavoratrici in edilizia. Hanno dimenticato i lavoratori sui campi, perché i lavoratori sui campi in Italia sono storicamente lavoratori intermittenti e precari e non hanno concesso alcun beneficio economico né di pausa lavorativa.
We had a meeting with the government last year, and they gave a heat furlough scheme for construction workers, but they have forgotten about agricultural workers, because in our country, traditional agricultural workers are precarious and underpaid, and so they haven't been given this kind of benefits.
Quest'anno il governo ci ha convocato sulla stessa tematica a luglio, dicendo che le imprese non vogliono parlare prima di luglio dell'argomento clima, perché tanto a settembre finirà l'emergenza.
The government called us for a meeting last year in July, and they told us that the enterprises, the companies, don't want to talk about the issue before July, because then in July they can say that the problem will be over in September, and therefore it will not be an issue anymore.
Quest'oggi in Italia noi abbiamo presentato un rapporto al quale abbiamo collaborato come sindacato italiano, che illustra la situazione delle ondate di caldo e dei malesseri, dei morti e delle malattie professionali dovute alle ondate di caldo sempre più frequenti.
They have prepared and presented a report on the effect and the impact of heat waves on workplaces in terms of illness and risk of death.
E abbiamo visto che non solo si ammalano i lavoratori outdoor, ma anche quelli indoor, e soprattutto cominciano ad ammalarsi seriamente i giovani. I giovani sono quelli che hanno più effetto in Italia dalle ondate di caldo perché sottovalutano i rischi della temperatura, sottovalutano i rischi sulla pelle del sole, sottovalutano anche la disidratazione e l'affaticamento durante la prestazione lavorativa.
Heat does not only impact on outdoor workers, it also affects indoor workers. And the report has found out that the most affected workers are indeed the younger workers because they tend to underestimate the dangers of heat on skin and therefore they don't take all the and dehydration and therefore they do not take all of the precautions that could be taken.
In quest'anno si è già registrata la temperatura più alta degli ultimi 30 anni rispetto ai luoghi di lavoro. In Sicilia si sono raggiunti i 49 gradi in uno stabilimento lavorativo. Questo significa che il problema non è più episodico, ma è un problema strutturale. Bisogna farlo capire a tutti e soprattutto per primi ai lavoratori, ma anche ai sindacati, e adesso dirò perché.
This year, we have already seen the highest temperature on record in a workplace in the last 30 years. It happened in Sicily. In a plant, there was a temperature of 49 degrees. And this shows that the problem is not only episodic, it is systemic. And we have to explain this to the workers, but also we need to make sure that the unions understand it. And I will explain why in a moment.
Il governo deve darci la legge sulla temperatura massima in cui si può lavorare. Lo abbiamo chiesto nei vari incontri, lo abbiamo chiesto nelle manifestazioni, lo chiederemo con la mobilitazione tutti i giorni. Il nostro primo interesse, ho sentito che è anche il vostro e mi fa piacere, è avere la legge che dice oltre quale temperatura non si possa lavorare.
Our demand is for the government to pass a law to determine the maximum temperature of, beyond which it is not possible to work anymore. We have been demanding this in demos and in meetings with the government representatives. The government must pass a law that establishes the maximum temperature.
E non semplicemente la temperatura atmosferica misurata con il classico termometro, ma associata agli indici di UV, radiazioni, temperatura, umidità e altri fattori che rendono ancora più pericoloso, perché le imprese vorrebbero questo come unico parametro, ma noi sappiamo che questo parametro non può essere sufficiente per proteggere bene i lavoratori.
The law should not be based just on simple temperature as it can be measured with a thermometer. It must also take into account other parameters like ultraviolet rays and therefore radiation and humidity that can make temperatures even more dangerous and unbearable.
Ma il sindacato ha anche il suo lavoro da fare. Ci sono ancora troppo pochi accordi che regolano queste questioni dentro la contrattazione collettiva nazionale e dentro la contrattazione collettiva locale. Solo le istituzioni, che sono le istanze più vicine ai cittadini, hanno fatto degli accordi territoriali con i sindacati o con altre istanze governative locali per stabilire temperature alle quali non si può lavorare.
But the unions also have work to do on this issue. There are not enough collective agreements yet on national or local level that set maximum temperatures. The only cases in which there have been some has been at the very local level, and here there has been some places where maximum temperatures have been established.
La difficoltà più grande, per esempio, per il sindacato è determinare giuste modifiche dell'organizzazione del lavoro. Noi abbiamo dei lavoratori purtroppo che diciamo ci mettono molto tempo per raggiungere i luoghi di lavoro e non vogliono ad esempio smettere di lavorare nelle ore calde perché ciò significa avere una giornata lunga 12-14 ore. Questo è un problema grosso qui in Italia perché abbiamo molte di queste imprese e molti di questi lavoratori che non vogliono che noi stabiliamo con la contrattazione modifiche all'ordinamento del lavoro in quell'azienda.
The greatest challenge is to persuade workers about the necessity to change the organization of work in given firms, because a lot of workers have to travel to commute for long times in order to get to work, and therefore they do not want to stop working in the hottest hours of the day, because that would mean that between the time they get out for work and the time they come back, including then the pause, that would be 13-14 hours in a day.
Ma una esperienza che abbiamo fatto recentemente tutti, quella della pandemia da Covid, ci ha mostrato invece che proprio l'organizzazione del lavoro, della quale noi sindacati ci possiamo riappropriare e possiamo imporre misure per la protezione dei lavoratori. In Italia noi l'abbiamo fatto con un accordo nazionale che ha costretto il governo a trasformarlo in legge e abbiamo adottato le misure per la protezione dei lavoratori, purtroppo non dappertutto perché ci sono state stragi in molti posti, e abbiamo imposto questo, quindi è un'esperienza storica fondamentale.
But the COVID-19 pandemic has shown that it is possible and necessary for workers and unions to intervene in the way that work is organized in enterprises in order to protect lives. And therefore, there's been a collective agreement that then was transformed due to union pressure by the government into a law that changed the ways that work was done during the pandemic and therefore saved many lives. Although, unfortunately, it was not enforced in all places, which caused high death rates in some sectors and industries.
Parlando inoltre dell'Unione Europea e non solo dell'Italia, abbiamo visto nel nostro report come su circa 60.000 accordi che riguardano i settori e diciamo le località di contrattazione collettiva sul caldo, che riguardano i settori della contrattazione collettiva sul caldo, sono stati fatti solo 2.600 accordi in tutta l'Unione Europea.
The report has also investigated the European Union level. So out of a total of 60,000 collective agreements, only 2,600 featured clauses regarding maximum temperatures.
L'ultima cosa che voglio dire è che è giusto, è vero che bisogna parlare di just transition, ma il problema è che ogni anno, quotidianamente, bisogna assistere tutti i lavoratori e le lavoratrici in tutti i settori produttivi, perché ormai non c'è più nessun settore non esposto e le storie singole, le malattie singole, gli infortuni che accadono anche a causa del caldo vanno denunciati, risarciti e chiariti uno per uno. Oltre a una grande azione, diciamo così, culturale e politica generale, a mio avviso il sindacato deve anche fare la tutela individuale, azienda per azienda, dei lavoratori singoli.
The last thing I want to say is that it is good and necessary to speak about just transitions, but this problem does not regard some sectors, industries, or firms. It is a problem across the whole of the workforce, and therefore, while it is necessary to have a general cultural and political action on the one hand, the union must also have individual action worker by worker to make sure that all the workers that are endangered and are damaged by the heat, the impact of the heat on the workplaces, gets justice.
Allora, grazie. Termino qui il mio intervento. Rimarrò volentieri ad ascoltarvi. E viva il sindacato e viva i lavoratori.
Thanks very much. I will remain with you for the rest of the meeting to hear the next interventions. Long live the union, long live the workers.
E grazie Lorenzo.
Grazie a te.
Thank you so much, Sebastiano. Thank you so much, Lorenzo. It was really brilliant to hear a perspective from another European country. And I think that this opened up the opportunities to really link up at international level. Okay, I'm just hearing a lot of noise, but anyway. Yeah, it was really good to see how we can collaborate across countries on this issue, and really important for Sebastiano to, highlight that the climate crisis is not just about, and the solutions is not just about workers in pollutive industries, it's also about every workplace, every worker, every sector that we need to see change. So thanks so much for this contribution. And before we continue our little tour of the UK union landscape, I'm going to now bring in Nuala Lam, one of the key organizers of the heat strike. It's been, really fantastic to work with you, Nuala, and you're going to just remind us, for those who don't know, what's this heat strike, and what are the key demands and the key messages that we want to hear from that. So Nuala, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So hello everyone. Thank you especially to Dharmendra and Sebastiano, and thank you to everyone for listening. I'm going to introduce the plan for heat strike. I'll try and keep it quite brief because you've already been listening very well for a long time. So heat strike is a plan to mobilize large numbers of people in their workplaces and at home in response to extreme heat in the UK. It's a plan to use our collective voice as citizens and as workers to make ourselves heard in Westminster and in the boardrooms of our employers. No one can be as productive as they would normally be in the extreme heat. So when heat waves strike, we will claim the inevitable drop in productivity, serving it back to the government as a protest against their failure to act on climate breakdown. You'll hear more from my colleague Liam later in the call about the resources we have to help you organise for heat strike in your local area or workplace. If you want to get those resources and get the word to say that we've called the heat strike, then sign up via our website. Liam's putting the link in the chat now, and you'll get that information from us. The resources are not complete quite yet, so you won't get them immediately that you sign up, but you'll get them in the next couple of weeks. So in 2022, the UK reached 40 degrees for the first time, as many of you are very aware. Over 1,000 people lost their lives, and still more turned to climate organisations to say, okay, the climate crisis feels real now, what can I do? But we weren't ready to meet them at the point that they were ready to step up. Now we have heat strike, we are ready. So many of us in heat strike have a background in climate activism, but we've built some of the most promising relationships with people in the trade union movement. And this is interesting to me because if we were to believe our own media, then that should have been very difficult. We should be enemies who have basic conflicts of interest that prevent us from collaborating. But it's been my experience so far that we actually want many of the same things. I think we have a shared interest in getting employers and the government to take our well-being now and into the future seriously. I think it's also been a smooth process building relationships in the trade union movement for us, because especially in the mass participation parts of the climate movement that we come from, and in the trade union movement, organising is our bread and butter. So we're already speaking the same language in really important ways. And the final thing to say, you'll hear more detail on what the actual mechanics of heat strike and what actual actions you can take from Liam later. But the final thing to say from me is that if you're sitting here on this call in the UK, you probably can feel that it's not very warm yet this summer. And there's a couple of things to say about that. So firstly, climate breakdown is making our weather systems less predictable and more extreme. You may have heard that we're in for the wettest summer on record. It's not impossible that it will also get extremely hot at points. The second thing to say, so we need to be prepared is what I'm saying there. The second thing to say is that we're at the tail end of an El Nino period, which means that the southern hemisphere gets really hot weather. So where Dharmendra is in India, obviously has experienced extreme temperatures recently. But here in Northern Europe, we get all the low pressure pushed up, which means wet, cold weather. And that's about to flip into a La Nina period. It's in the process of changing this summer. I think El Nino has officially ended and La Nina is due to officially begin in September. So that basically means we just don't know when we'll start to feel the effects of being in that other weather system. That's to say, we don't know if the heat strike will happen this summer. But finally, whether heat strike happens this year or not, whether it happens this year or next, I think next year it is very, very likely to happen because we'll be firmly back in La Nina. The more organized we get now, the bigger and more powerful our voices will be when it matters. So don't forget to sign up via our website if you want to get more info on how to get involved. I'm really super excited to hear the other speakers and to show you all the resources we have at the end of this call, because we've got loads of great stuff, especially like designed for and geared towards workers and union members to take heat strike and make it their own in their workplaces. So thank you. You're on mute, Clara.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nuala. And you're right, we are here, to build those relationships, those collaboration in the medium, long term. This is not just for the summer. We're linking with health and safety reps, and that's really opening up collaboration. So that's brilliant. And thank you for your little explanation. So now we've got a representative from different trade unions in the UK. I'm really looking forward to hear from them and to hear, the impact of, those heat waves and workplace temperature in different sectors, but also, if they got any reflections on the links between climate crisis and the worker struggle. And our first speaker in this round is Ricardo Latorre. He's a national officer for the Fire Brigade Union. I'm really pleased Ricardo has been able to join us. So you are next, Ricardo.
Thank you, Clara. Thank you, Nuala. And look, thank you for inviting us to this incredibly important rally this morning, and what is such an important initiative. Now, I suppose my contribution may be slightly different, because although, as I'm about to set out, the struggle is the same, the consequences, given the nature of our profession and our trade as firefighters, is slightly different. But I want to start by setting out how severe a workplace issue this is for FBU members, for firefighters in the here and now. So this isn't abstract. This isn't a future coming over the hill issue. This isn't an emerging issue. It's an incredibly relevant and severe and growing issue in the here and now for firefighters. On to about one incident, the Yarnell Hill fire in Arizona in 2013 was the biggest loss of firefighter lives at a single incident since the World Trade Center. 19 of the Granite Mountain hotshots were killed in one instance, battling a wildfire. Just this week, last week, we've seen firefighters in California hospitalized. At the other end of extreme weather events, we've sadly seen a firefighter in Germany die whilst trying to protect his community from floods. So this is a workplace issue that is taking the lives and the health of firefighters ever more regularly all over the world as we speak. And look, I've done 18 years fighting fires in Essex. I can speak firsthand. These fires are brutal. No element of firefighting is easy, but these particular fires, wildfires caused by heat waves, are absolutely brutal. The extreme temperatures you're working at, the fire spreads at speeds faster than a firefighter can move. You can't hear. Not a lot of people realize this, but they're incredibly loud. And your PPE in those temperatures can become as much as a hazard to you as it does a protection. But despite these incidents growing in regularity and severity, despite heat waves being in the National Risk Register since 2008, wildfire being added to the National Risk Register in 2013, a register that fire services and government should be preparing for. Instead, what we've seen them do is absolutely decimate the fire and rescue service. So we're not just fighting this growing risk in regularity and severity, but since 2010, we've seen 12,000 firefighters cut, and all the resources and equipment that go with that. We had 30% of central government funding cut at a time where we should be growing and funding the service to be able to be resilient and prepare for this risk, but we're absolutely unprepared. And look, we've been absolutely let down by government and policymakers and chief fire officers in preparing to be on the front line of a climate crisis. There's consequences to that. You know, we're not just seeing the wildfires increase as we see in temperatures soar, but where they're happening, we're seeing change. We're now seeing them in what we call a rural-urban interface. They're no longer out just in wildland. We're seeing them reach urban areas. I mean, in that 19th of July heat wave in 2022 was the busiest day for London Fire Brigade, London, since World War II. We saw firefighters hospitalised that day, one after the other after the other. They were desperately calling for backup and were told there simply wasn't any coming, whilst fire engines sat dormant and empty all over the capital because we simply don't have enough workers, enough firefighters to crew them. It's an absolute scandal. 15 major incidents were called across the UK on that day. This is a growing incident. And although we saw firefighters hospitalised through burns, through heat exhaustion, one after the other through these heat waves, it's not just the immediate effects that are harming workers in the fire and rescue service. You know, we've seen by the work, and I'd urge you all to look at it, work done by Professor Anna Stetz and her team at UCLan, evidencing the link between the sort of exposures at these incidents and the sorts of temperatures at these incidents, linking to cancer and other occupational diseases in the fire and rescue service. So we can't even really quantify the damage done to firefighters by these extreme weather events. So look, I suppose the question is, what do we do about this? We heard some fantastic examples from Shelley earlier about what collective action we can take in the workplace to protect our safety. But we need to also be looking at what collective action in the workplace can we take to start demanding and delivering the solutions to the root causes of this climate crisis, which absolutely is a workers' issue. It is a class issue. Therefore, we have to be organising and searching for the solutions within our workplaces, because we can wait for politicians and bosses to save us. It's not happening. Now, I'm sure we're all waiting to see the Labour manifesto. Look, maybe it does provide all of the radical solutions to dealing with the climate crisis. I think we can all assume that it doesn't and it won't. So we have to start organising ourselves where our power truly lies, and that is in the workplace. And there's another important point to make on that, by the way. I don't think this campaign and this collective action can be done alone. We have to look wider. We have to be looking at the repeal and the demand for the repeal, or the organising not to comply with the anti-trade union laws that strip workers of their rights to be able to take action over wider issues such as the climate crisis, such an existential crisis affecting us all, yet we wouldn't be allowed to lawfully strike over it because of these draconian union laws. So the campaign to repeal them, so we can truly take the effective action needed here, absolutely has to be part of this campaign. And it isn't just a domestic issue. It's been fantastic to hear our comrades from around the world speaking at this event, because it absolutely is an international issue, because it's a class issue. We say this in the fire service. The firefighting family is international. Our struggle is international. Therefore, our organising has to be international as well. And look, we're part of the Firefighters Network through the European Public Services Union. Now, we work closely with firefighters from Sebastiano's union, CGL in Italy, on this issue, and it is growing everywhere. It is an increasing risk everywhere. It is killing and it is harming workers everywhere. So our response has to be radical, it has to be strong, and it has to be together. And this is a fantastic start, this heat strike initiative. The demands, of course, don't necessarily apply to us. And no, we can't really be furloughed in a heat wave because our work increases. We certainly have to restrict what we do in regards to unnecessary work, but we absolutely can get behind this campaign, get behind the demands to protect and show solidarity to other workers who do need to be furloughed. And we absolutely can be part of the solutions to this and developing a strategy. You can find our Scorched report on wildfires on our website, as well as the Firefighters Manifesto setting out some of that work. And look, the first step for us is, and I'm very pleased to announce this, Clara, Noel, I'm sorry I haven't told you more formally, but I've come straight from the EC meeting into this meeting. But the Fire Brigade Union National Executive voted today to officially affiliate to and support Heat Strike and the project and the demands, will absolutely be throwing our organisation and our strength behind this. We'll be organising our members who already understand very acutely the size of this hazard, because they're on the front line of it every day. We say they're at home battling a cost of living crisis and at work battling a climate crisis. We absolutely have to organise together across workplaces and across our class in response to this. So I'll end there because I think I've gone on too long. Thank you to all the great speakers. Thank you to the organisers, and really looking forward to hearing the comrades after me as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ricardo. I mean, it's so important to hear the voices of, our fire brigades. And you've been, you've got a long track record on speaking out on the climate crisis and highlighting the effect that it has not only on your members, but, on the general public. So it's really amazing to hear that, your executive committee is actually behind the heat strike. And obviously we're working on different measures and different actions that people can take in their workplace, and we're looking forward to develop those demands, amplify the specific demands of unions around the issue. So thanks so much, Ricardo. I'm really pleased now that we're gonna hear from our comrade Robbie Woodland from the Bakers Food and Allied Workers Union. I mean, the Bakers Union, again, has a long track record on supporting the climate justice movement, whether it's anti-fracking or, the development of green reps. And they've been really helpful in helping us to publicize the heat strike and participate previous rallies. So Robbie is the president of the Bakers Union in Cornwall, and I'm delighted that he's able to join us tonight. Robbie, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all good. Sending special solidarity to our international comrades who's joined us tonight. Absolutely wonderful. Just a little message to Ricardo there. You stole half my thunder, but well done. That was great. And it was great that the FBU is now affiliated with this and will support it as we do. We're all aware that many of our members are subject to heat, excess heat on their normal day-to-day jobs. But when the heat gets excessive, it becomes extreme. Now, we at the Bakers Union, we're quite tough little cookies, really. We will not allow our members to be subject to any kind of heat exhaustion, any issues to do with this heat strike issue of ours. We are determined and will act in every way we can. We've just been at our annual conference. We passed motions demanding that action is taken. And if governments or the new government fails to act in any way to protect the people, then we must demand that they protect the people. They have a duty of care, like employers, to care for its workforce, to care for the people of the country. And we, as a movement, must ensure that they do it. We have that power. If we all stick together, stand together, fight together, strike together, we can win these demands. It's all about strength in numbers. Now, we're going to introduce reps, health and safety reps nationally, encourage our members to become health and safety reps so we can get that information to everybody to make sure they're well aware of what they can do when extreme temperatures hit. Now, in my own little world down in Cornwall, I've been doing this for a couple of years. In 2022, when we had that long, excessive heat wave, I told the management, didn't ask, I told them, You will introduce extra breaks. You will supply cold drinks. You will install extra water coolers, and you will pay people. If we ask to go home early, you will pay them that day's wage. Totally, the Bakers Union agree with a furlough scheme, but I beat you all to it. You know, why should our members be penalised for businesses who conclude and get involved with governments to stop climate change laws coming into practice over greed? It's not our fault. We're not to blame for that. Corporate businesses and governments are. We're not taking that fall. We must be strong on this campaign. You know, in any way you can take action, we must do it. We must show businesses, employers, governments, we're not going to take this nonsense. They must act on climate change. Now, some of the little things I scammed up during 2022 was go slows. For an example, if somebody had to feed 20 items through a roller, I told them you cut that down to 10. If there's 3 or 4 of them on a machine, I told them one of you goes off and has a bit of a skive, comes back, then another one goes. And we constantly kept that going. So production went down. And in the end, they realized that they weren't going to beat us. And they started sending people home with pay. It does work. I know we're only a small little group, but if that was done nationally, we could make waves. Going forward, as you said, it looks not such an extreme heat year this year, but we have time then. It'll be good to keep this movement going, working together, plotting, planning. And I personally think we should be treating this like a general strike. It's that important. If it becomes that nobody listens, nobody wants to help, they would sooner take the greed of corporate companies. We treat it as a general strike. We'll all down tools. We'll all stop working until they do act. So the Bakers Union will be with this, no doubt, all the way through. We will take action. We will support you all. And we'll always be part of this movement. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Robbie, and thank you so much for taking the time out of conference to take part. I see you still got your landlord on, and it's great to see that those issues are on the forefront of the Bakers Union's agenda, and has been for a long time, because even before the sort of climate crisis was on union agenda, I know you were already developing like a campaign around maximum workplace temperature, because many of your members do obviously work in very hot factories. So it's also great to hear about some of the action that you've put in place, and it's certainly inspiring. So thanks so much, and solidarity to your union for the rest of your conference. Thank you. We still got 3 speakers that are gonna give us again different perspective, and it's really amazing to see how wide-ranging this issue is affecting workers. So our next speaker, I'm really pleased to welcome Claire Trevor, or Trev. Really good to see you again. Claire is branch secretary for the Unite Hospitality in the East Midlands. And they do represent workers who in restaurants and bars, and also catering environments. So Claire, I'm going to find you to spotlight you on the video, but I'm really pleased that you are with us tonight. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Also, someone is drilling outside my window, so if it disrupts the noise, I'll just try and speak over it. Apologies for that. Firstly, thank you so much to Clara and the Heat Strike team for this opportunity. This is a great campaign to be involved in, and a special welcome to our international guests as well. As president of FAT Youth Committee, I always enjoy seeing an international contribution on a national Zoom. So Unite the Union has successfully launched hospitality branches in some areas in Britain and Ireland, including the East Midlands, the South East and Glasgow. I'm the branch secretary of East Midlands Hospitality Branch, and we celebrated our first birthday last week. We have a hospitality combine where lead activists from all over Britain and Ireland come together to strategise for campaigns and to share examples of best practices from our own workplaces. Hospitality is a challenging sector to organise, but we are growing from strength to strength and developing more branches all over Britain and Ireland. One of the common issues raised at workplace level is the temperature inside the workplace. Many workers during a cost of living crisis are struggling to heat their homes adequately during the winter and keep cool during the summer. Workers in low-paid jobs are more likely to depend on public transport, and when you add the issue of workplaces themselves not being adequately heated or cooled, it means many are spending the whole year suffering from the increasingly extreme temperatures in the UK. Hospitality workers are not only at risk because of the heat in the kitchens and the physically demanding nature of the job, but also workplaces in our sector, like others, are suffering cuts in a post-pandemic, post-Brexit economic climate. So many places are not getting aircon or heater maintenance or the emergency fans or heaters needed in extreme temperatures. This has a knock-on effect as there are fewer guests staying in overheated restaurants, which means there is less money for labour, so then the hours within precarious jobs are also affected. The hospitality sector has a low union density, so there's a very limited understanding of workers' rights, and many workers have no knowledge of Section 44 and how it can be used. Many workplaces lack the power to stand up for themselves and are not protected by trade unions because they don't realise they can become members or they can't afford to join. Because the needs of the guests are always the priority, the health of the workers is compromised in heat waves and they can't take the extra rest breaks and water breaks needed. Some workplaces don't even have access to a running water supply. In restaurants where they are permitted to use emergency fans, there's been reports of these being pointed only at guest-facing areas rather than accommodating the workers themselves, who are the ones who are moving around in the heat. The kitchen heat is often extreme, with temperatures going over 40, and on long shifts in poorly ventilated buildings with minimal or no breaks, this can have serious effects on workers' health. Workers are not just at risk of heat stroke, but being repeatedly exposed to excessive heat can cause health conditions like cardiovascular and chronic kidney disease. There's been a proven link between excessive heat and workplace injuries because of the effect it has on concentration, which I know some things Shelley mentioned earlier. The heat will affect the running of the fridges and freezers and increase the food waste, which is already a huge issue within the sector. Alongside the TUC, Unite is lobbying for a maximum working temperature of 30 degrees or 27 for anyone in strenuous conditions. At 24, there should be a legal duty for employers to make workers' conditions more comfortable. Unite Hospitality is running a campaign targeted at chefs in the industry, and high temperatures is one of the main issues affecting them. Workers are already fighting back against poor conditions, though. At Broadcast Bar in Glasgow, unionised workers forced the owner to close for 2 weeks while they spent £40,000 on a refurbishment to remove black mould. So I know this is a different issue, but it shows that obviously we are utilising the workers. 2 workers were dismissed over complaints but reinstated, and a grievance represented 75% of staff, with what Unite called some of the worst breaches of health and safety we've ever dealt with. The workers were paid in full during the closure, and this wouldn't have been possible without the union's intervention. Even workers who don't consider themselves politically minded or are not pro-union are affected by the heat. This is why the heat strike should be a driving force to mobilise workers to take action, to realise these issues are a reason to fight back against bad practices in the sector. In a youth-dominated, precarious industry like hospitality, where it is not common for workers to be unionised, We need to focus on issues that do affect young workers, such as the climate crisis, to activate the activists and collectively demand better. The climate crisis will affect everyone, so it is up to us to ensure we are fighting back against bad practices and reminding workers of their power to do this. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Trav, and big up to you and to all the Unite Young members who are organizing in a very difficult sector, as you highlighted. So it was great to hear some of the victories that you also had, and it's like certainly very inspiring. And we are looking forward as well to work more with your members in the hospitality sector on looking at the link between the climate crisis and your sector, not only just workplace temperature, but some of the members have been talking about like food waste and other issues. So we'll continue building those links. Thank you so much for your contribution tonight. We're looking forward to continue to work with you. We've got a couple more speakers that I'm looking forward to hear from. The next person is Jamie McGovern, who is in the same region than me in Merseyside, and we collaborated at the Merseyside International Workers Memorial Day at the end of April, where they helped to promote the heat strike, and Jamie is area safety rep for Royal Mail at the Communication Workers Union. So I'm looking forward to hear your contribution, Jamie. If I can find you to spotlight you, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Clara, and good evening, everyone. And first of all, solidarity and respect to all the speakers so far. It's a great rally, this, and really interesting contributions. As Clara mentioned and Shelley mentioned previously, I'm from the CW in Merseyside, the Northwest region as well, and primarily we're a union concerned now with how climate change is affecting our members. The vast majority of our members spend long hours working outdoors. It's not just posties as well. We work from a branch where we work with BT Openreach engineers who spend lots of time outdoors, up telegraph poles, installing and cable. So for me, from the International Workers Memorial Day Committee in Merseyside as well, we were really pleased when the theme of this year was climate risks and the climate risks issue, because we felt that was hugely important to us as a trade union, but to other trade unions as well. I think it created a lot of awareness about climate risk, but I think it's our own responsibility now to carry that on and try and make positive change in respect to what's going on with this climate emergency. I think the light bulb moment for me, though, when I realised climate change was having an effect on us and our members, was actually 2017. There's actually a storm event in the UK called Storm Doris. People may remember that. And we had 3 incredibly dangerous near-miss events. One thing that sticks in my mind was when a tree came down and basically split a Royal Mail vehicle in 2 in South Liverpool. And there's a personal story there. The postie was only 30 seconds away from returning to that vehicle when that tree came down and split that vehicle in 2. So we're seeing more severe weather events, in fact, 12 storm events already in 23, 24. But also getting onto the theme again around the warmer climate. What brought the warmer climate risks home to me was actually the pandemic, believe it or not. What was missed in the pandemic, because people were focusing on other things, was the fact that it was actually a really warm spring and really warm summer in 2020. And what we had, people we were representing was, we had then increased risk because postal workers were key workers, okay, and they were out there delivering mail, identified as key workers, but they didn't have access to, refilling the water bottles. We use something called a refill app to go to the places where, people can refill water bottles. Also, access to toilets wasn't there during the pandemic for many, many postal workers. So therefore, what we saw during the pandemic was people embarking on what they call deliberate dehydration, where because they didn't have access to toilets, because everywhere was closed, they weren't drinking because they knew they couldn't find a toilet. So that became really dangerous, for many, many postal workers during the pandemic. No access to toilets, weren't drinking because they couldn't go to the toilet, and it became really dangerous. And that hot spring and hot summer of 2020, I think has been largely forgotten about because everyone was concentrating on the pandemic. For us, I think we believe that workplace exposure limits should also include outdoors as well, you know, and there should be a measure of hot temperature exposure for what's safe. We've also been trying to speak to other people about this. I mean, I know Andy Morse may be on the call tonight. We contacted Andy Morse, Professor Andy Morse from Liverpool University, to try and help us with creating a new risk matrix, you know, with scientific evidence to support us to identify what's safe at 3 hours of exposure, 4 hours of exposure, or 5 hours of exposure outdoors, and at what temperature, you know, because, you know, we need to be better than just telling people to be careful out there, which many employers do to outdoor workers. You know, let's be careful out there. You know, this is not, you know, a Hill Street Blues TV show. This is real life. You know, people are dying because of the heat. One of the successful campaigns that Dave Joyce, who's our national officer, our outgoing national safety officer, embarked on, was getting uniform with UV protection in it. So the high-vis jackets that you see the postal workers wear now, they're actually made of a material called UPF 50, which repels UV rays, up to 98% of UV rays. We think this should be built in as PPE for all outdoor workers. You know, all outdoor workers, you know, should be entitled to this protection under law because of the dangers of sun exposure. You know, I mentioned to Clara, again, at Works Memorial Day that, you know, I'm supporting 3 colleagues in our branch area with skin cancer right now, you know, potentially linked to what they faced in terms of the job, being exposed to high temperatures and sun exposure. You know, it's there's a lot of personal stories out there, and, you know, really impactful stories of posties who are really struggling when it comes to the hot weather. Shelley mentioned as well, we had a recall in 2022. There was a recall at 35 degrees of all staff, outdoor staff, because the Met Office identified that was a threat to life. But 35 degrees, I think, is about 95 Fahrenheit. We believe it should be 30 degrees, which is still high at 86, because we are in a manual job. When you're in a manual job, heat injury risks become very, very high. You know, I think globally we're seeing temperatures going up, and even though we're thinking these risks are going to increase gradually as temperatures continue to rise, we're experiencing this risk now. You know, many postal workers are now going out at peak times between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. when the risk levels are higher. So I just want to finish by mentioning one thing that happened last year, which seemed to go under the radar. It was a death of a postal worker in America, a postal worker called Eugene Gates, who died on the 20th of June last year, and he was delivering, I think he was a postie in Dallas, and he was delivering outdoors when the temperature reached 113 degrees. And the US Postal Service were fined $15,000 for the death of Eugene Gates for failing to put in robust risk assessment processes. That is not enough, and we need to do more, and we need to remember people like Eugene Gates and use his case as an example to keep fighting for change. And I'm so delighted there's so many people on this call tonight who share the same philosophy as us, as we do as a trade union. So hopefully, working with Clara and Heat Strike and many other people, we can try and make a collective effort to make a real change that makes a difference in people's lives, and because the workers of our country deserve to be protected.
Thanks so much, Jamie, for these testimonies. And as we can see, we're talking about people's lives here. It goes beyond their house. It's like people are already dying because of this. So absolutely, we need to work together for this. We're looking forward to more work with the CW and your health and safety, and also for everybody. When it's hot, don't forget, if you see your postie, offer them some water. And I always offer them some toilets as well, because, people don't think about that. When you're out there for like hours doing your round, it's really challenging. So thanks so much for your contribution. And we're running slightly off time, but not too much. So bear with us, because we've still got a couple of speakers We've got a poll from the GMB and hazard campaign, and then we're going to come back to Liam, who's going to like conclude the rally with, you know, telling us about the different tools that we are going to offer. So we will finish in the next 10 minutes. But yeah, I'm really pleased, and you've been so patient, Paul. So you're the last speakers from the union movement, but not the least. Really pleased that you're here from the GMB union, and also representing the hazard campaign, who's been doing a fantastic work around health and safety and some of the climate justice issue around it. So Paul, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Clara. Yeah, it's, I spent most of the time being fascinated listening to different speeches, and at the same time editing my own speech, taking out things that everyone else was saying. But I've written it to last half an hour anyway, so I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. I've edited a lot out. I'm a practical health and safety officer, and I'm a campaign with I'm obviously involved in the hazards campaign. And the way the hazards campaign is some valuable and supporting trade unions and workers, people like myself as a health and safety officer, raising awareness and educating people on how to challenge bad and dangerous working conditions. But we're also campaigning to show there are clear links between protecting our natural environments and workplace environments, and the strong links. And I do a lot of site visits, go visit factories and workplaces, and it's quite clear when you speak to people of these links. Specific elements I would watch out for. You're looking at how the workplace and the natural environment impact on the physical and mental health of people, because they do, the effect, and they're linked, very strongly linked. Excessive temperature outdoors and indoors are going to have a wide range of implications for people, short-term and long-term health. The effect they can have on them is quite devastating. And our experience, or my experience, is that accidents are far more likely to happen as well in certain heat conditions where people are exhausted and are drained or dehydrated. So the increase in accidents during these periods as well is something to watch out for. And a lot of the site visits have it's quite shocking. You come into contact with workforces where they're working in factories where there's no air conditioning, inadequate ventilation, no extraction systems for fumes or for dust. So they're breathing in. I was in a place in St. Helens recently, and the acetate that they were making, that wraps like cling film, wrap up food, big rolls of these things, were going on fire, and people were breathing in the fumes. And the health and safety manager who worked there, part of the management team, suggested that they open the doors and the windows to try and get the smoke out. They had no extraction whatsoever, and it was actually quite shocking. And that was the first time for a while, but I used Section 44 to close down the area until work was done on those particular two machines that were causing the fires. This type of area, this type of workforce, working with those big risks of respiratory illnesses that can lead to crippling for the rest of their lives and killing them in some cases. But I would say that there are far more complaints coming to my office during heat waves. So when there's a heat wave and there's particularly high temperatures, far more complaints coming in, and there's a clear correlation between them. So there's loads of factors in respect to a role in creating that occupational heat stress to my members. And we've already heard people talking about different working environments, but we have people maybe working out in parks and fields, and obviously the temperatures can affect them, and we have to make sure there's protective agreements in place. We can't just rely on individual managers, because we found them to be inadequate, and we've had to try and reach agreements in a number of places with councils and with employers where people are in that outside environment. And the same goes for inside. Presence of heat sources like ovens or furnaces in the work area. Some areas that I've been into in the last year or so, there's been large amounts of women of menopausal age doing repetitive manual lifting in and around massive big ovens with excessive temperatures. And they're not even aware that they know that it's hot, they know they're uncomfortable. They're not aware that dehydration has been such a big problem, long-term damage it can do to their organs. We've had people fainting, with people collapsing, falling on the job. And we've taken steps to again use Section 44. There's a place, Jacobs, a big biscuit factory in Liverpool, and we've used Section 44 on a number of occasions there to stop departments until change has been put in place, extractors being fixed, ventilation being put in place. And we've used that. We've used the threat of Section 44 of the Employment Rights Act to negotiate changes with the provision of cool rooms, cold water dispensers, and increased breaks, trying to alleviate some of the pressure on people. But it's, the working conditions need to be dramatically changed. Obviously, the level of physical activity and the environment and the working time all impact on people, all obviously an issue. But they can be altered by union agreements. We've seen that. Staffing levels, longer breaks, shorter hours. Workplaces like Sellafield, I was at Sellafield a couple of times last year, the nuclear waste clearance place. And it has far more serious risks for staff on top of radiation or chemical contamination. A number of women I was talking to were working in a nuclear cleaning area to clean certain machinery. They have to obviously wear PPE, and they go through various protective areas, rooms, and then they get showered, and then they change into the clothes, and they were told they couldn't get showered in that particular area because there was Legionella in the water tanks. So if the radiation doesn't get you, the Legionella will get you. That was actually quite shocking, and some of the things that are going on in that place are beyond belief. The other aspect, obviously, in respect to the environment, is radiation-contaminated wastewater going into the Irish Sea. Dangerous scandal, needs to be stopped by the next government. It's as simple as that. Also, other companies like United Utilities, who supposed to look after the quality of our water, but through greed and bad management, they've underinvested, which means less or inadequate staffing levels, which put pressure on the workforce, maybe failure to update or improve or maintain equipment, which leads to sewage and spillages into our waterways, which are stressful for our members, but also has implications for our members and the public working or living in that environment. I'm going to wind up, I'm halfway through it, but I'm going to wind up on this, just talking about one of the campaigns that I think is really essential. One of the GMB, our regional campaign in the last year, or priority in the last year, has been to promote risk assessments everywhere on everything, highlighting requirements to carry out collective workplace risk assessments, sectoral risk assessments, also individual personal risk impact on people who maybe are vulnerable. One of the main issues is that there's inadequate numbers or insufficient numbers of adequately trained managers and staff, health and safety managers to carry them out, and they're just box ticking exercises which have major implications for people. So unless they follow the management health and safety at work regulations, then there's maybe major implications for health and safety of the workforce. Part of the risk assessments are the demands for agreements tied into the risk assessments. I've been looking at a number of other areas like occupational health, improved occupational health. If you think that the Health and Safety at Work Act, which came in 1975-76, introduced occupational health, and it's diminished dramatically. My experience in all those years. And we are negotiating with employers and forcing them to move from 10-minute phone calls, to someone on the phone line in Cornwall, dealing with a factory in Northwich in Cheshire. They know nothing about the sector, they know nothing about the work that the people are doing. And the company have now agreed to negotiate with us in restoring occupational health services and bringing in trained medical staff to work employed in the company, Imerys, former ICI company. So we're having quite a bit of an impact by using the risk assessments on people to try and force the change. So occupational health is another area, I think, which really is a big part to play in looking at our working environment and how to determine conditions, and forcing companies to bring in the right testing equipment as well, looking at how they measure heat stress and exposure to extreme heat. It can result in lots of occupational health problems and injuries, and employers have a legal duty to prevent that, and they obviously need sometimes to be persuaded to do that, and that's been part of our work in the last year. But I think the conference has been great. It's just a subject that I work on all the time. I also train our reps and our members to look out for the use of risk assessments and introduce them everywhere they can. But it's essential that they're aware of the natural environment as much as their working environment, because it's all about the health, safety and welfare of them as workers. So I'll wrap up at that, but thanks for everyone for the contribution and listen to my rant for the last 5 minutes.
No, thank you so much, Paul. I think it was great to, get your expertise as a health and safety, expert, and also, bringing some insight of, other examples of the link between, environmental issues and the workplace, as well as example of equalities issues. You have mentioned around certain disability and people who are more vulnerable, maybe more impacted, or women can also be on the front line of those issues, and the impact on the mental health that this can have are all really important. So, well done for being the last speaker and still added some excellent value to this rally. We're coming towards the end of our rally now, but I'm going to ask our Heat Strike team to come back to sort of conclude. Before I do that, I really want to thanks all of our speakers. It was really useful to hear what you had to say. Shelley, Manju, Sebastiano, Ricardo, Robbie, Trev, Jamie, and Paul. We are really grateful to you, and also for our two translators. So I'm now going to pass on to Liam, who's going to conclude this rally by talking to us about the practical measure, the practical actions and tools that we have got for you on the heat strike. Liam?
Yes, can you hear me? Thank you so much to everyone who's spoken. I think both myself and Nuala are just blown away by the energy and enthusiasm from all of you, from all across the world and around the UK. Both me and Nuala were involved in launching something called Extinction Rebellion. You might have heard of it because it blew up, but it's just so exciting to be starting something with thinking about workers first. And we're at this stage now where we can feel heat strike growing and people from the climate movement and the unions coming together. It feels like something that could really grow, but it's just great to be starting with this basis. So I just wanted to say that before I go into my more prepared speech on what are the resources. So as we've been putting in the chat many times, our website has launched today in time for this rally. And so we'd love it if you would share that around and encourage people to sign up, because that is the way that you can get updates on heat strike. It's the way that you'll get the signal to strike, because as we've said, we don't know when the hot weather will come, but we know that when people can feel the heat and feel the climate crisis, they're more likely to act. So we can mobilize more people and we can pressure politicians to actually protect workers and vulnerable people together. What you'll also get really soon in the next couple of weeks is our heat strike flat pack. That's got loads of the resources that have already been shared in the chat, but I've also been furiously making notes and copying out links for things that aren't already in the flat pack. And that's why we're not launching the flat pack today. You'll get that in your email in a couple of weeks if you sign up on the website heatstrike.uk. So the flat pack tells people, whether they're individuals, union members, or part of a local climate group or faith group, all of the different ways they can take part in the heat strike. And there's so many ways. So on the strike itself, on the hottest day, we think there'll be climate groups dropping banners across the UK. There'll be people setting up call stations, talking to their community about the impacts of the climate crisis and how they can get involved in taking action. There'll be union members doing lunchtime walkouts and so many more ways to take part. But because we're here now and we've got this momentum of people passing heat strike motions, I wanted to mostly talk about all of the resources in the flat pack that Nula's showing you on the screen share at the moment that you can do right now. So the flat pack in the union member section has down at the bottom loads of links to resources, research, things that you can talk to your union branch or fellow union members about, and back up why this is so important. It's got, you know, all of these resources from the TUC already, the Cool It campaign, hazards, information. We've collected it all in one place, so it's really easy to use and to talk to people about why this matters. Although we've just heard 10 brilliant examples of how to talk about why this matters. So you can also listen to this recording. It's also got our draft motion that Clara put together. So in that section, you'll be able to get your draft motion and use that to bring a motion to your branch or your national assembly. It's got all the materials you need, and what we're doing right now is updating it with all of the motions that have already been passed. So we're going to be updating it with the FBU now. Today I've just been updating it because yesterday Equity passed a motion to support heat strike and encourage their members to be part of it as well. So there's a real momentum now passing these motions and having people support, having unions support their members to be involved in different ways. Once the motion's passed, it goes on to tell you more ways that you can be involved. So during the COVID pandemic, the General Secretary of Unite sent out a letter saying that he would support any of his members who decided to withdraw themselves from dangerous workplaces under Section 44. So there are things like that that we can keep doing to prepare ourselves before the heat strikes. There are also things you can share on social media. There's a health and safety poster that you could put up in your workplace about measures that your workplace can start to negotiate between health and safety committees and employers about measures that they can put in place, including setting a workplace temperature at your work before we get it into national policy. So all of that is in the flat pack, which is why we want as many people as possible to sign up. Nula's now showing the health and safety poster that I just put in the chat because that is ready for you to download now if you'd like. So in terms of local groups, there's lots of things they can be doing. As I said, there's cool stations, which is this idea of a bit like warm spaces, setting up a place to help your community out, providing water, providing a space for them to cool down, but also giving them information about why it's key that the government take climate action and set a maximum working temperature for workers. We're also going to be doing banner drops around the UK to get the message out, because all of the work we're doing now is building this coalition of groups to take action on the hottest day, but hopefully that will get many more people around the country who aren't members of unions, who aren't members of climate groups, to find out about it and support and get involved. So the flat pack also has information about how to join your union. And of course, the flat pack also includes lots of information about Section 44 and how to use it. And we're going to be updating that with more specific information for different kinds of workplaces. So if you do have, this is, as I've said many times, we've built this on the back of the Cool It campaign, information from hazards, information from the TUC. We just pulled it all together in one place so that it's really useful for everyone. So if you do have more research that you want to add in there, or for example, I think Equity for a Green New Deal are going to write some things that their members might specifically do, and that can go in there. So we'll have information for different workplaces. And finally, what it has is it has templates for social media and posters that you can either use yourself, just download them, or you can order flyers and posters from us. So the flat pack and signing up means that you'll have everything that you need, whether you're taking part at work, at home, online, or on the streets. There are people coming together, and we've got the momentum now to keep going with Heat Strike. So thank you so much for being part of it, and we're looking forward to working with you.
Wow, thank you so much, Liam, for this amazing fly through, this amazing resources that you've been putting together. You've been like so busy bees behind the scenes. I tell you what, I feel like almost crying, because I really think that it shows what collaboration between the climate justice movement and the workers' movement could achieve if we do more of it. The Heat Strike, I think, can set a precedent in positive collaboration. And we are also, starting to work with climate justice group in other areas. I mean, I've been, busy in linking up climate justice group in Wales with the Port Talbot steelworkers. There are now like collaborations starting up in Scotland. The thing is, the climate crisis is happening now. It's affecting the workers, our workplaces, and the transition has started, and it isn't just. So we need to build up those alliances. Thank you so much, everybody, for tonight. We have recorded the rally. We'll be sharing it with you, as well as some of the resources that were shared tonight. That will be done in the next few days. So you will have a first set of information that you can utilize, and then in the next couple of weeks you will get even more resources and the full flat pack. So I can see Nwala would like to have the last word, and leave it to you to conclude and say goodbye to everybody. Nwala.
Hi, sorry, I just wanted to quickly come in at the end and say that like none of this would have been happening without Clara and the work that she does. That like I don't know how long you've been doing this, Clara, but I get the sense this is based on like years of work and relationship building, that you could pull these groups of people together. And we had an idea that happened to have broad appeal, but like you saw it for what it was, and have done huge amounts of really valuable work. So just wanted to make sure everyone knows that Clara is like the best.
Thank you so much.